Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday afternoon. Hope yours is going well. We've got another Seahawks video to get to today, but first, we just hit 3,770 subscribers. I'm going to give a shout out to all the subscribers. And special tip of the cap goes to the channel members, especially new channel member David Joachim, and elite channel members Brendon, Mikel, Hasher, Salacious, Crumb, Ryguy, Brendan Nelson's Haircut, VGK Tigers, ItsHoof, The Reno, TlVlO, Austin Roberts, Scott Todd, PH Glass, Aaron Garrett, Arfman, 12th Man, and Eli Bennett, 44. Okay, so we've got ourselves some more minor roster cleanup notes to go through today. A couple of more players got picked up in the last few hours by the Seahawks. These players are possibly going to just end up being roster fodder, but as we continue to fill out the 90-man roster, I think it's good to keep track of everything that's going on because you never know who's going to surprise you and you never know who's going to end up being, even if they don't make the team initially, they make the team later. You see it all the time. Players get hurt and then you have to call somebody up, so you go get somebody who was on the team in training camp because they know the scheme a little bit, they know the offense or defense a little bit, and they have some familiarity with the team. So I want to talk about these two guys that we picked up, and then we'll take a look at the overall state of the 90-man roster. So first guy we're going to take a look at here is Nick Guggemos. Very interesting prospect here. He's a tight end, and he played Division III football in Minnesota. Has not played football in 2 years because he suffered a massive injury in 2018 and did not play in 2019 or 2020. So I couldn't really find any stats for him. I couldn't find any real numbers of meaning because, well, he hasn't played football in 2 years. And when he did play, he played at a tiny school. And he actually played wide receiver when he was there, but he projects to tight end in the NFL. And if you take a look at his combine numbers, they are off the charts. This is a dude who is 6'5" and weighs about 250 pounds. And he put up a 40 time of 4.49. That is freakish. These numbers in general are freakish for a dude of his size. So, granted, these kinds of numbers don't mean anything once you get on the field. You need to actually be able to produce. And clearly, this guy has not really produced because he hasn't even played football in 2 years. And even when he did, it was a very small school. But when I saw these combine numbers, I was like, wow, this guy might actually have something. So, if you take a look at our 90-man roster right now, we have 3 tight ends who are likely to make the active roster, and then we don't really have anybody. We have Tyler Mabry, who is completely disposable. So don't be surprised if Nick Guggemos makes a run at the roster in some capacity this offseason just through his insanely good measurables, because we don't really have a 4th tight end right now. All he has to do is beat out Tyler Mabry, and he's the 4th tight end by default. So that's Nick Guggemos, very interesting prospect. I cannot really point to any degree of production that he has in his career to indicate that he might make this team, but these measurables are head-turning. All right, the next guy we picked up in the last couple hours was a Saivion Smith. This is a guy who entered the draft a couple years ago. When undrafted, got picked up by Jacksonville, and then last year he got picked up by the Dallas Cowboys. He played a little bit, but not anything significant in the NFL. The Cowboys put him on waivers after the draft, and we decided to go take a shot on him. 6'1", about 200 pounds, so he's got that Seahawk cornerback size. If you take a look at what he did his 1 year at Alabama, because he spent a couple years at smaller schools before transferring to Alabama, he actually played pretty well. He had 36 tackles, 3 interceptions, 5 pass deflections, a forced fumble. He actually played pretty well for Alabama in 2018. So this is not a college scrub, at least. He did produce at the highest level in college football. I went to go look up a little scouting report on Saivion Smith before he went undrafted. And the Draft Network basically goes in describing all of his different attributes. Short version is that he looks like he's going to be good in a zone defense. He's got good ball skills. His flexibility is good in terms of his transitions. His competitive toughness is good, and he's also a really good tackler, and he's good in run support. The overall summary they gave on him was Physical skill set suggests he can be a regular contributor on the defensive side of the football, but his sloppy technique and poor feel for routes will get the better of him until he's able to further hone his craft in a single setting. Smith projects best in a cover 3 scheme, LO, where he can use bail technique and protect vertically while keying the quarterback. Well, okay, that sounds a little Seahawky to me. So even though this guy is obviously a very low-level player, and while he may very well be roster fodder, he does have some traits that mark him as a guy who can fit in with this defense, a guy who can fit in with the kind of corners that Pete Carroll typically likes. So Saivion Smith is kind of interesting as a player. Again, we have a lot of corners on this roster, and we have a lot of corners on this roster who we're going to have to make tough decisions on as is. So I wouldn't necessarily expect Saivion Smith to be first in line for any roster spot or practice squad spot. But this is kind of an interesting player, too. Not as interesting as Guggemos, maybe, but he does have some of the attributes that you would expect Pete Carroll to be able to get something out of. And again, injuries are going to happen. Players are going to miss games. Players are going to go on IR. And mid-season, you need to go find somebody to pick up. It might be somebody like this who spent his summer and part of the fall on the training camp on the 90-man before getting cut. So, yeah. All right, so if we go over to the 90-man roster as it is right now, I've kind of filled it out. We have Saivion Smith added here. I have him listed as a nickel, but he'll probably be an outside corner for us. I just put him here because of lack of room. I put Guggemos up here as the tight end, most likely to be to somehow make the team, but currently being ranked as roster fodder. I think he probably edges out Mabry for the best shot at a roster spot for a non-guaranteed roster spot tight end. I did a couple other things as well. I moved Weddington over to running back because I've heard that we're going to move him to running back, which is actually an idea that I really like. And I also threw on Patrick Carr and Darvin Kidsey because I kind of forgot about them. But as far as I know, if we were to start training camp today, they would probably get called in as part of the 90-man. I don't think they have any chance in the universe of making even the practice squad, much less the team. But if training camp started today, they would probably be part of the 90-man roster. And that basically gets us to an 87-man squad. We got 53 players on the active roster right now. We got 13 players on the practice squad because we get the bonus spot with Donkor, who, by the way, the more I hear about Donkor, the more I like. The more I really think he actually has a chance of making this team and doing something at some point. I don't know if it's going to be this year, but the more I hear about him, the more I like. And then you've got 22 kind of roster fodder type guys. And by the way, when I say roster fodder, it doesn't mean I think they suck and they have no chance of making the team. I just think the odds are against them. I think some of the players in this group right here, these 22 players, I actually think some of them could be pretty good. I actually think that at least a couple of them will edge out some veterans or some expected to make at least the practice squad guys. I'm just trying to project what the final rosters might be. I'm just making my best guess right now. I got some people in the comments who seem to think I was throwing shade at these guys. And in some cases I am, but there are a lot of guys in this group who I think actually have a decent chance of fighting their way onto the team. So I don't take anything for granted in that regard, but I'm just doing the projections the best I can with the information that we have. Anyway, this leaves us with 3 roster spots left for the 90-man, and it's trivial to clear space if you want to bring in a few more. Patrick Carr could be not even brought back on the 90-man. We had him last year, and he didn't do anything, so what's the difference? Darvin Kidsey, Tyler Mabry, Brad Lundblade, Gavin Heslop. You could see all of these guys just not even get invited back to the 90-man. So if there is a need to add a handful more players, if we find some, low-level sleepers who we are really into, then we can definitely bring them on and just clear room that way. But as of right now, this is how I see the 90-man roster coming together. 87 spots filled. Who are we going to get to fill the last 3? And again, the guys who we bring in have a very good chance of being roster fodder, but every little bit counts, guys. Every little bit counts. So I'll see you guys later. Peace out. Go Hawks. I know this isn't the most exciting Seahawks news in the world. I know you guys are all sitting on the edge of your seat for like, oh, we signed Richard Sherman, or oh, we signed KJ Wright, or we traded for Julio Jones or something. But this stuff matters too, and we're gonna keep track of all of it on this channel. So with that in mind, see you guys later tonight. Go Hawks!